to Builds Not Projects. This week we're reviving the old 89 Toyota with the 1UZ V8 in it. So basically I quit driving this in March when I put an engine in the diesel truck that I had bought, and I've been driving it because this thing will randomly just like turn off driving down the highway and may or may not restart. It tends to decide to flood out every once in a while. So it's had some electrical gremlins. I thought it was maybe in the electronic throttle body because it has a little motor in there. So I rebuilt that, and that didn't fix anything because the throttle would randomly just cut out as well. Like I'd have no electronic throttle anymore, or the truck would just completely shut off. So I ordered a standalone engine management system for it with the harness and everything. So we're gonna go ahead and try to slap that thing in. Here is the wiring harness. It's much simpler than the other one that I had, as it deletes the mass airflow sensor, the O2 sensors, something else. Oh, it deletes the electronic throttle motor as well. So I'll have to modify that throttle body to make it just a cable pull. The old computer and the nice little box that it showed up in. Well, we got to pull all the old wiring and everything out first. This thing currently has a stock GS400 ECU in it, and a hacked up wiring harness that I built 3 or 4 years ago. So also when we were pulling this thing in here, the braided fuel hose right over here decided that it was going to explode, and it sprayed gasoline all over the place. So it currently smells like a large amount of gas in here, so we might just call it good for tonight and try again tomorrow night. Step one, we gotta disconnect this crusty battery that is completely dead, mainly so I can throw it on a charger tonight. Pretty lucky that we didn't end up with a little dirt garage fire moment here, because it probably dumped a good gallon of gas out in about 20 feet, and it was just spewing out of there. So we're gonna try to disconnect this battery, which also may have been part of my ECU problem, as one of the times that my truck has left the ground in its almighty flying glory, I didn't have a battery tie down on it, and the battery may have arced on the hood and killed the truck. And I think it may have damaged the ECU when it did that, because ever since that time, it is when it started having the major problems with it deciding to just shut off. This thing's just soaked in gas and acid.
Nice, that's a good combo, gas and acid.
Yeah, probably fine. So we got the major portion of the engine harness all ripped loose. Actually, all the engine harness is ripped loose. Now time for the rat's nest in here. So this computer is fairly large. This is a factory GS400 computer that I kind of halfway mounted in here. It would be nice to not have this in here anymore. So as all of this wiring, trick the immobilizer setup, and all that comes out, I could eventually put AC back in this truck, which I mean, it never had AC, but it would be nice to have AC in it.
That thing is a real mess in there.
Yeah, there's a few wires that are gonna have to get figured out, because the new harness didn't come wired for any of the like starter or any of that. So I'll have to build a harness for the starter, alternator, and the power steering pump, because it has a solenoid on it that controls the pressure. So I just gotta wire it to 12 volt ignition, so that's no big deal.
Most of that's going away though, right?
Yeah, pretty much all this is gonna go away. This is all for the engine stuff. This doesn't have any of the transmission connectors or anything on it anymore. So yeah, some of these wires are still labeled from when I did it, so that's kind of nice. All these O2 wires are going to be going away because it's not going to need any O2 sensors anymore, which all of these actually run under the carpet under the driver's seat to the rear O2 sensors. Don't need that anymore. That was the computer chip to make this thing all work to start with. ordered this guy from Russia, and it tricked the old computer into thinking it had an automatic transmission behind it, so it would work and not go into limp mode and stuff.
It still goes in limp mode, but for different reasons.
It does. It's not because of this. This portion of it works. It has full throttle and all of that. Essentially what this does is it, when it would go into that limp mode for the transmission, it would limit it to half power and like part throttle. Whereas this is definitely working because it's got full power and full throttle, but then there was some sort of another glitch in the computer. Probably from me jumping it and the battery shorting out on the hood, I would imagine. But what do? You gotta jump them sometimes.
Yeah, maybe next time strap down the battery.
Yeah, I mean, after that I threw a couple zip ties on it and that helped, but maybe I should actually do a correct battery mount this time.
I mean, we do have the necessary tools to build one, so...
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely be building one before this is all said and done and I jump it again. That end, so I have a color of what it attached to. Ah, bingo. There's one.
Nice. Maybe like 10 more to go.
Under the broken fuel line. Bingo.
That's a big mess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit bigger than the other thing that we got that fit in a little tiny box.
Yeah.
Well, the old harness and the new harness, it's a lot of weight savings there. Not that, you know, I mean, weight savings isn't necessarily the most important thing in the Toyota, but weight savings is always the most important thing, so...
Also, that new computer probably weighs a little less than the old one, too.
Yeah, I think total between the wiring harnesses, we probably got an easy, like, 10 pounds weight savings. Don't have a scale in here, but, like, this one, my arm would get tired if I was holding it out like this for an extended period of time. Like, you can feel the burn in your shoulder. It's fairly heavy. This little guy, on the other hand, you could hold it out there all day long.
Also looks a lot nicer.
Yeah, it's a little cleaner. Few hundred less wires probably. I think that's like a mile less of wire.
Yeah.
Yeah, new harness doesn't actually fit. So I messaged the seller of this harness and they said they just put the wrong connectors on the coils. So what I'm doing is depinning the ones out of the old harness, slapping them on here, so then we get the correct connectors on for the ignition coils. I asked them about the cam sensor connectors. They said it doesn't need the cam sensors for this computer setup. They said it's all calculated from the crank sensor. They say all the VVT stuff will work correctly, no issues. So I guess we'll swap all these out, wire this thing, and see how it works. So we're making some progress. All the wiring harnesses essentially in. The power steering pump and alternator aren't hooked up yet. I'll have to build a harness for them. Just ran the starter wire back here. Got the new map sensor wired up back here. Yeah, so essentially it's all in. The harness is ran through. Over here, still need to mount these. It's all ran inside. Computer's all hooked up, minus like tack signal and a bunch of that other stuff that we don't really need to see if it runs. After doing some troubleshooting, trying to figure out why it wouldn't start and messaging back and forth with the seller of this product, I came up with I needed to ohm out some pins and make sure that the crank sensor was doing as it should, because it had no crank sensor signal in the laptop. We got crank sensor signal back again. That's all good. We got the throttle position sensor calibrated, map sensors calibrated, water temperatures calibrated. So as you can tell, the old water temperature is a whopping 41 degrees right now because it's nice and chilly in the shop. So I think we should be good to hook up. I'm just following the Spitronics website information, so now I should be good to hook up the other connectors back for all the coils and all that, and see if it's gonna maybe start or see if it throws more codes. Well, I don't have a fuel pump hooked up anymore currently, just because I was letting it sit with the key on for so long. I will end up running that off of this computer, so it'll turn on the fuel pump relay as it should, instead of just turning on whenever the key's turned on, because that would probably be a better idea. It would actually prime the system and do as it should during startup instead of just pumping a bunch of fuel. So we'll see what this does, just cranking on it, see if it sets a bunch of codes or not. And the battery is problem 365 with this here wiring harness setup. I mean, it would have been super awesome if it was wired correctly to start with. So the coil connectors that came on it, we had to depin and put these ones on for our coils here. So we just swapped them straight across, wired them the exact same as the other ones. Well, turns out Toyota, in their infinite wisdom, decided to wire these coils on this exact engine different than all the rest of their coils. They're opposite. So, I mean, the power and the ground are still in the same spot, but the trigger wire goes next to the power wire instead of next to the ground wire. So, once I finally figured that out, after a good couple hours of wanting to rip all of my hair out and smash my head against the wall, we finally have spark. So I'm just finishing up swapping all these over, got a couple left, and then hopefully maybe it'll start. So we're gonna crank it with no fuel pump and see what it does. I sprayed a little bit of starting fluid in there a little bit ago and then figured out I had no spark. So we'll try it again. Wow, that's great. Should have done that from the beginning. Quite a while for not having a fuel pump. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah, that was impressive.
Yeah. So good news, the computer works. It was very plug and play. Yeah. I think it was kind of like a few years ago, Mighty Car Mods was doing all their best bolt-on mods, and they discovered that none of them were actually bolt-on. Every single thing had to be modified. Yeah, that's how I feel right now. So I hooked the fuel pump up, so we'll try this again, see if it'll actually kind of idle. I mean, it seems to be running all right so far, just sitting here idling. Kind of let it warm up a little bit and just keep an eye on exhaust and stuff and make sure that it's not puking a bunch of black smoke or anything.
That was a little brutal, I'm not gonna lie.
That was a nice poppy there.
Yeah. Whew. Man, look at that idle.
I know. Smoothest idle this thing's ever had in its whole life. I think it has a limiter on it, set at like 4,500 right now for
idling.
coolant temperature. Because it's not up to temp yet.
Yeah. Huh.
Super happy that it is actually running. It actually runs pretty good. The little videos of the pops and stuff, it has a cold limiter in it as well, so at like when it's below 60 degrees Celsius, whatever that is in Fahrenheit, it didn't convert it for me, so I don't know. Somewhere around 130, 140 degrees Fahrenheit. The limiter kicks off and then it just has its full limiter, which I think currently is set at like maybe 7,000. I'm gonna probably lower that a little bit, since the factory one's set at 6,400 and I used to just smash that thing all the time. Probably don't want to smash the limiter at 7,000 all that bad.
No, that'll be fine.
But that's all we're gonna have time for this video. Unfortunately, that took way longer than I thought it was going to. I think it's gonna work out really well though, in the long run, as far as having that in there instead of this mess of wires and the ECU that is like yay big. This is just a way cleaner setup. I'll be able to actually like go through, clean up the engine bay a lot better. I gotta redo some mounts and stuff. I didn't like the way any of this was done when I did it like 3 years ago, but I kind of just quickly threw the last little bits on it so I could drive it. Because originally when I put this thing together, I wanted it running for my birthday, and I finished it at 5 o'clock at night on my birthday, and then drove it 45 minutes right after I got it running. And then never took the time to finish doing all this stuff. So we'll go through, get all the rest of that stuff cleaned up, get the interior all put back together, and then we'll go road drive it and see if we need to tweak the harness or tweak the tuning at all or not. I've never really done any of that, but I guess we'll just go see how it runs. Supposedly it has a good tune in it already, so we shouldn't have to mess with any of that. But supposedly it was supposed to just plug in and fire up too, and that didn't happen. So that being said, thanks for watching this video. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't. Comment down below what you'd like to see happen with this thing, because it's going to be making a comeback to the videos here soon. Well, it already has, as this whole video is about this truck. I'm getting kind of tired. It's been a long day. So see you in the next video.